Okay. Now we are in the live stream, right, Ali?
Because I'm worried that maybe the internet will be down on my side. So, as Dr. Mubashir, you can start now.
So, may I start, Dr. Umar and Dr. Ali?
Yeah. Yes.
Wait a few minutes, 1-2 minutes.
Yeah, we will wait a few minutes for people to join. But
Okay, perfect.
You are already now YouTube and Facebook, as we have 3 channels.
Okay. Let's start our webinar. Dear participants and dear audience, welcome to our session with Dr. Mubashir Hussein Rahmani. And today we will have a very great talk on the professional concept entitled as Scientific Publication Process and Starting Career as a Researcher. In this talk, we mainly aim to give some insights. In fact, Dr. Mubashir will explain it better, but in this profession talk, we aim to provide some tips, some knowledge, fundamental knowledge about scientific publication process, and you can also consider it as a part of academic writing workshop. Scientific publication process, and you can also consider it as a part of academic writing workshop. Scientific publication process, and you can also consider it a part of academic writing. Okay. Okay. If you close the YouTube session, then it will be better to continue. Okay, now we are in Zoom, and let's continue about that. And okay, today our guest speaker is Dr. Mubashir Hussein Rahmani. He is a great researcher, great professor from Ireland and UK Ireland section. In fact, Dr. Mubashir Hussein Rahmani can introduce himself. Welcome to this session, and thank you very much for accepting our webinar request, Dr. Mubashir. Could you introduce yourself shortly? Thus, our audience will see you, will know you better.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Umar and IEEE Region 8 Young Professionals team for inviting me for this webinar. My name is Mubashir Hussain Rahmani, and I am working as an assistant lecturer in Department of Computer Science, Munster Technological University, Ireland. And I have been serving as editor, associate editor, area editor, and in editorial board of several top-ranked journals of telecommunication and computer science in general. And I'm the recipient of several best paper awards, and I have published numerous publications. So today, the topic of my presentation will be scientific publication process and starting career as a researcher. So you may all heard about COVID-19, and we are facing a lot of difficulties due to this coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And as you know, this coronavirus has impacted our lives, and millions of people were affected by this, and the countries were shut down, and education has stopped, and businesses were not running. So this COVID-19 research, basically scientists have been working on this research, and they were inventing vaccines and testing those vaccines. So if we want to understand where this exactly how this COVID-19 vaccine works, and what is the scientific invention behind this COVID-19 vaccine and the studies conducted. So we will not consult, any Facebook page or any news article. Instead, we will look at scientific publications, scientific journals. So we will not. So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, there are two famous vaccines: Pfizer BioNTech and Oxford AstraZeneca. And if you want to study the details about these vaccines, how these vaccines were invented and how these vaccines were investigated and tested over the general public, you will look at the scientific journals. So the first one, Pfizer BioNTech, its results were published in Nature journal. And here's the link of this article. And it has an impact factor of 49.96 according to JCR 2020. And this is basically indexed by Clarivate, Web of Science. Similarly, if you look at the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, this vaccine results were published in the Lancet journal, and it has an impact factor of 79.32, and again it is indexed by Clarivate, Web of Science. So as you can observe, both of these top-ranked journals, they were indexed by Clarivate, and they have impact factor. So we will be discussing about the impact factor and the role of Clarivate. So if you look at the article, scientific article of Pfizer vaccine, here it is, and you can see Özlem Tusar and Uğur Şahin are the co-authors in this paper, who are from Turkey, originally from Turkey, and this is basically the paper of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So if you are interested, you can explore these papers on the Nature journal and the Lancet journal to understand more details about these papers. So the point that I'm trying to make over here is that these journals are basically top ranked journals. And when you are saying that you are publishing in top quality scientific journals, it means you are conducting top quality research. It means your research has some technical worth and your research has an impact. So I am relating top quality research with top quality publications. So if you are doing a wonderful research which has a long lasting impact on the society, on the world, and it is changing something in the world for the benefit of the humanity, it means you are doing very top class level research, and it is publishing in top quality scientific journals. So publishing in top quality scientific journals means you are doing some good piece of research. So this was a first example where I tried to show you that there is a role of Clarivate, Web of Science, and these top quality journals. Now, in my second example, I'm going to show you an annual report developed by Government of Ireland. Basically, Government of Ireland has a body which is known as Science Foundation Ireland. So Science Foundation Ireland is basically regulating or providing funding to the scientific research to higher education sector. And each year they publish this annual report, and in this annual report they try to highlight the performance of Ireland as a country and the performance of Ireland's researchers and scientists in different scientific domains. So as you can see, Ireland is ranked number 12th in global scientific ranking, and there were, Ireland was ranked number 1 in immunology and number 2 in agriculture science, and they produce around 4,900 publications, and there were around 27 highly cited researchers back in 2019 in Ireland. So all this data they were collecting from Clarivate. So this is the point, a very important point to consider. Secondly, if you look at other parts of this report, you will see that they also provide some other details, some other specific details about ranking of Ireland in terms of publication quality, in terms of, comparison with other countries, other European countries. So all this data again is produced by Clarivate. Now, if we look at all these data, so the question is, who basically regulates this all scientific research around the globe? Means how the journals are being validated, or how we can say that these journals are credible, and which one is a good journal, which one is not a good journal, and how these scientific inventions, experiments, studies were conducted, verified, and published, and what are the major branches of science are there when we talk about scientific publications. What is a journal article? What is an impact factor? And what is the role of Clarivate Web of Science in all these aspects? And if we are working in a particular domain, how we can identify which are the top ranked journals in our domain, and how we can identify top quality researchers, scientists in our field, and finally, how to publish in this high quality scientific journals. So answering all these questions will help us to basically understand the scientific publication process, and we will be able to get some insights how we can publish in these top quality journals. So let's start with Clarivate. So Clarivate is basically a publicly registered company in New York Stock Exchange. And previously, it was the intellectual property of Thomson Reuters. And it is involved in many aspects in the scientific community. So the first one is Web of Science. So Web of Science is basically a portal where they organize the world's research information to enable academia, corporations, publishers, and government to accelerate the pace of research. And the data that this Web of Science provide will help governments and organizations and institute to make their policy, to make their decision. So it's a complete repository of world's scientific research. And again, this is managed by Clarivate. Publons is another platform which is managed by Clarivate, and basically it trace and verify peer review and editorial contributions. The third one is Scholar One. So when you try to submit a research article in a journal, there is a submission site where you upload your paper, and then the whole peer review process is conducted on that website, and all the interaction between authors, reviewers, and editors and the editorial office is being conducted on this website of the journal. So Scholar One is one such website which manages more than 7,000 submission process of journals, and it is again owned by Clarivate. There is each year there is a journal citation report issued by Clarivate. So this journal citation report is basically the list of journals and having their impact factor. So you may all have heard about impact factor. This journal has high impact factor, this journal has low impact factor, and everybody is talking about the impact factor. So this impact factor is actually issued by Clarivate in their journal citation reports. And then Essential Science Indicator ESI is also managed by Clarivate, which reveals emerging science trends. So these are few of the things that are managed by Clarivate. And Clarivate also release annually highly cited researcher list, the list of top 1% scientists in different scientific field. They are also released by Clarivate. And as you recently know about the Nobel Prize. So Clarivate also each year announce citation laureates, means the list of those persons who are likely to win Nobel Prize, and their predictions are so far quite accurate. So these are different aspects in which Clarivate is involved in the scientific community. Now there are a few more details about journal citation report. So journal citation report basically provides you the ranking of the journals in different scientific domains, and basically each year they announce, and there are around 20,000 journals registered in this journal citation report. And basically, Web of Science monitors and excludes journals that demonstrate predatory behavior. So basically, they are performing some sort of regulatory aspect in these journals. They are trying to maintain the quality aspect in these journals, that whatever published in these journals, and they publish in an ethical manner, and there is some sort of a standard that is being maintained in these journals. And there are around 28 criteria based upon which they assess the journal, and then they include the impact factor of that journal. If some journal is not following those criteria that are mentioned by them, then they exclude it from the list of those journals, index journals. Similarly, if they observe any abnormal activity, citation activity in different journals, then they also take actions. So it plays a regulatory role in the scientific publication process. And note that this CLARIVAT is publisher neutral, means they are not associated with any publisher. So whatever they say, it has more credibility and acceptance in the international scientific community. Now, few basic terms that will help us to proceed further. So citation, you may all have heard about citations. So citation is a reference to a published or unpublished source. And basically, it is a way to see how much well-referenced the published work is. And it is a criteria used by different funding agencies and in different promotions, that we look at how many citations a particular researcher is attracting, how many citations a particular journal is attracting. And it comes under the branch of science, which is known as library and information science, and it comes under bibliometrics. So this is basically a metric that can be used to quantify the performance of a journal or performance of a researcher. Similarly, we have another metric which is known as impact factor. So impact factor or journal impact factor is basically a measure reflecting the yearly average number of citations to recent articles published in that journal. So it is again, as I mentioned, it is issued by CLARIVAT Web of Science, and it issues annually. So how they calculate the journal's impact factor? So here is an example of 2019 journal impact factor. So as you can see, there are total number of citations received by this journal in last 2 years, which is 5,451. And in the last 2 years, this journal published 230 articles. So when we divide these, we will get this 23.7, which is the impact factor of this journal. So there are two factors involved in the calculation of the impact factor of any journal. The first one is the number of citations it received in the last 2 years. And the second one is the total number of articles published in the last 2 years. So you can see if a journal is publishing too many articles, it will have a negative effect on the impact factor, and the impact factor will decrease. So the publisher has to make a balance and try to publish. The good publishers try to publish quality work, and when they publish the quality work, they have this high number of citations that they receive, and it increases the impact factor of that journal. There are some other matrices as well, for example, I-10 index or H index, and there are other matrices as well, for example, alt matrix, which tell us the performance of a particular article or a journal. For example, here you can see this is a paper, and it shows how many times it is this paper is referenced on blogs, Facebook pages, and on tweets. But these are some alternate metrics, and they are not fully replacing the traditional matrices like impact factor or H index or I-10 index, but it is again used by used in some case studies. So these were few matrices that we normally use in scientific publication process. Now let's start with the ranking of the journals. So this journal citation report I'm here referring 2020, which is released a few months ago. So these ranking of journals, first let's talk about top quality journals, top quality scientific journals in all disciplines. So if we see, there are around 21 scientific disciplines according to Clarivet. So among those, these are the rank of top ranked journals. The first one is Cancer Journal for Clinicians. It has an impact factor of 508.7. And then you have Nature journals like Nature Review, Molecular Cell Biology, New England Journal of Medicine, Lancet, Nature Energy, and there are other journals. So these are the top quality journals of all disciplines throughout. But you know, when we compare the impact factor of different journals, we need to look at our discipline, our domain. So instead of comparing two different disciplines, we need to focus on on our discipline. Now here I'm talking about computer science. So within computer science, there are subdomains as well. For example, telecommunication, information systems, software engineering, hardware, computer science theory. So all these comes under the umbrella of computer science. So within the computer science domain, there are scientific publishers. These publishers are IEEE, Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, ACM, Cambridge University Press, Taylor and Francis, IET, and there are other publishers as well, which heavily publish and manages journals in computer science domain. So the question is, what are the contribution of these publishers in computer science domain? So if you look at IEEE manages around 200 journals in the domain of computer science, and it publishes more than 30% of world's current literature in electrical engineering, electronics, and computer science. So it has a very huge contribution in the domain of computer science. Elsevier manages around 2,500 journals in different subjects, and they are also managing quite a few number of journals in computer science domain as well. Similarly, Wiley also manages around 1,400 journals in different subjects, and ACM manages around 50 journals. So IEEE has a very huge stake in the management of journals in the computer science domain. So, but the question is, why we always talk about IEEE too much in the domain of computer science? The reason is that IEEE has 21 of the top 25 journals in telecommunication by the journal impact factor. And if you talk about electrical and electronic engineering, with respect to journal impact factor, IEEE has 27 of the top 30 journals. That's why, when we talk about quality work, we always talk about IEEE. And definitely there are other journals as well managed by other publishers, but IEEE has a huge impact in the computer science domain. Now, if you look at the subdomain of computer science, which is artificial intelligence, you can see the top 3 ranked journals, number 1, number 3, and number 5 ranking. They are all managed by IEEE. These are IEEE Transactions on Pattern Analysis and Machine Intelligence. The 3rd ranked journal is IEEE Transactions on Evolutionary Computation. And the 5th ranked journal is IEEE Transactions on Cybernetics. So all these journals, they are very good quality journals. And again, these top quality journals belongs to IEEE. Similarly, if you look at other subdomains of computer science like hardware and architecture, information systems, software engineering, or theory and methods, you can find that among the top ranked journals, IEEE based journals have very good ranking in all these disciplines. Now let's look at ranking of journals in all computer science domain. So you can see this is the ranking list of computer science journals when we combine all the subdisciplines within the computer science. So the first ranked journal is IEEE Communication Surveys and Tutorials. It has an impact factor of 25.24. Then you have the second ranked journal, IEEE Transactions on Pattern Analysis and Machine Intelligence. And the third ranked journal is Nature Machine Intelligence, and so on and so forth. So these are the combined list of all computer science journals and ranked according to the journal impact factor. Now, if we look at, more precisely the sub-disciplines within the computer science domain. So when we talk about telecommunication, so I will be presenting top 20 journals in all these sub-disciplines of the computer science. So within the telecommunication, these are the top 20 journals. In this slide, I'm showing top 10 journals. In the next slide, I will be showing the other 10 journals. So here you can see the first ranked journal is IEEE Communication Surveys and Tutorial, then IEEE Wireless Communication, then IEEE Network, then IEEE Vehicular Technology Magazine, and then on rank number 7, IEEE Journal on Selected Areas in Communication. And these are the top 20 ranked journals. Remember that these journals have different, these journals are different type. For example, some journals are magazine. They publish magazine articles, and some journals are pure technical journals like transactions, and some journals are, some journal publishes survey articles. So you need to understand that within this ranking, there are different categories of the journals. And when you try to think about publishing in those journals, you need to understand the type of articles that they generally accept and publish. So if you precisely talk about, a very technical contribution, you will always go for transactions or technical journals. And if you are, publishing some sort of visionary article, or article that provides knowledge to the general reader with some technical details, you will go for magazine articles. If you are going to publish a review or survey article, then you will go for computing surveys or IEEE communication surveys and tutorial. So you need to know that these are different types of journals. Then there is a list of top quality journals in the domain of artificial intelligence. As you can see, the top ranked journal in artificial intelligence is IEEE Transactions on Pattern Analysis and Machine Intelligence. And then rank number 7 is Nature Machine Intelligence, which belongs to Nature. And then third one is Information Fusion, which belongs to Elsevier. And the rest of the top ranked journals belongs to IEEE. And these are some other journals managed by different publishers. And here is the list of top quality journals in the discipline of information systems. And these are the top 20 ranked journals within the domain of information system. Similarly, if you are working in the domain of software engineering, so you can see IEEE Transactions on Service Computing is ranked number 1. Then you have Computer Science Review. Then you have IEEE Transactions on Dependable and Secure Computing, and so on and so forth. So those who are working in the software engineering discipline, they can understand that these are the top ranked journals. And when we talk about interdisciplinary research within computer science, means how computer science is interacting with other domains of the science. So they have also issued the list of those journals, like Nature Machine Intelligence is ranked number 1 in this domain. Similarly, you have Computer Aided Civil and Infrastructure Engineering Journal, where you are interacting with civil engineering. Then you have Transactions on Industrial Informatics and Medical Image Analysis and Computer and Education, and so on and so forth. So these are the top ranked journals of computer science domain. Now, what I want to say to you is that when you start, thinking about researchers, scientific research, and if you want to start research, first try to identify what are the top ranked journals in your discipline. If you are working in information system or machine learning, or even in any other discipline like medicine or physiology or pharmacology or chemistry or biology, whatever your discipline is, first try to identify the top ranked journals. And how you can identify the top ranked journals? You can identify the top ranked journals by looking at journal citation report. So journal citation report will give you, the ranking of those journals. And then within the ranking of those journals, you can then look at different types of journals that are there. And then you can start reading those papers and try to publish in those journals. Now, in a scientific publication process, we have peer review. So peer review basically is the evaluation of work by one or more people with similar competencies as the producer of the work. So when you submit your article to a journal or a conference, there is a peer review, and this peer review basically is vital to the quality of published research. And your colleagues or people with the similar competencies will evaluate your work in an anonymous manner, and then they can give feedback on the technical evaluation of your work. Now, peer review is basically ensures the integrity of science by excluding invalid or low quality research. So when you submit your article in a top quality journal, you will get very technical and very high quality peer review feedback on your article. This means that they try to maintain the quality of the scientific research that they publish. But if you go to low quality journals, the submission to publication time will be reduced enormously, and you will not get good quality technical reviews, and your paper will be easily accepted there. So that is the difference between publishing in high quality journals and publishing in low quality journals. So peer review can be done in two ways: single blinded way and a double blinded way. So in single blind way, the names of the reviewers are not shared with the author, but the reviewers are aware of the author's identity. And in double blind, neither the author nor the reviewers are aware of each other's identity. So depending upon the journal where you are submitting, you need to know which type of peer review process they manage. And some journals follow, majority of the journals follow single blind review. Means you cannot know the name of the reviewers who gave feedback on your papers, while the reviewers know your identity. Now, how generally this works? So when you make a scientific invention or conduct a scientific study or came up with an idea, you write a scientific article and include your scientific results within that article, and make your invention easily understandable by the audience. And you submit your article to a journal. So when you submit your article to a journal, it is evaluated by the editorial office. They first try to see if the paper is within the scope of the journal. If you are working in the domain of biology and you are submitting your paper to a journal in the domain of computer science, definitely the paper will be out of scope. So the editorial office will immediately reject your article. So the main responsibility of editorial office is to check whether the paper comes within the scope or not, and they also check some other points as well, like if the submitted article is following the page limit, or the references are correctly mentioned, or the template has been followed by the authors or not. Once your paper got clearance from the editorial office, then it is sent to the editor-in-chief, and the editor-in-chief, is the expert of the field, a big professor or very reputed person in the scientific domain in that particular area. So he has been involved for several years in the scientific community, and he has a lot of experience. So when he see any paper, he or she can easily understand the quality of the work by looking at quickly, because they are, they have a lot of practice of doing these tasks. If they feel that the paper is of good quality and has the potential, then they assign a manuscript number to that paper, and this paper is being assigned to the area editor or associate editor. Then the area editor or associate editor will be fully responsible for managing that paper. They then start assigning the reviewers to the paper, and those assignment of the reviewers will be depending upon few factors. So the associate editors or area editors know how to invite reviewers. Those reviewers should not be the same institute, should not be, have some conflict of interest, and they should be from different institutes and the different geographical areas, and have good competencies. So once the paper is assigned to the reviewer read the papers and give their comments on the technical aspect of the paper, and then they submit their reviews. So once all the reviews, typically 3 to 4 reviews are generally required by a journal, and in some journal they work with two reviews. So once the review process is completed and the associate editor or area editor receive all the reviews from the reviewers, then they read the reviews and read the paper as well once again, and then make a decision whether the paper should be accepted or rejected, or major revision should be given or minor revision should be given, whatever it is, depending upon the feedback from the reviewers and the general understanding of the associate editor. And then this decision will be communicated to the authors. And then if the authors were given chance to revise the paper, they revise the paper, and then the same process goes once again, and finally the paper get published. So this is a general peer review process which is being followed by different journals. Remember that there are so many details in each of these steps, which I skipped because of the time. Now, when we talk about peer review process, so there are certain responsibilities by the authors, by the editors, and by the reviewers. So authors should follow, ethical practices, and when they receive the comments, they should address those comments carefully. And when they submit any work, that should be, not plagiarized, and follow, ethical standards. From the point of view of reviewers should conduct, reviews of high quality. Sometimes some reviewers try to, give a review feedback of a one-liner or two-liner, which is not good. So the reviewers should be expert in that field, and they should look at the content of the paper and look at the scientific contribution, and the review should be unbiased, and they should not look at, the nationality, the race, and any other aspect of the authors. They should look at the scientific content itself, and then make their decision, recommend their decision. Now, in terms of editor, the editor should be unbiased and take unbiased decisions, and look at the content of the paper, whether the paper is contributing something to the scientific knowledge. So this is how the whole peer review process in terms of responsibilities carried out. There are two types of publishing in scientific journals. The first one is open access. So in open access, whoever can visit the website, they can read the paper, they can download the paper. But in open access, the money has to be paid by the authors. And in open access journals, generally, they take less time from submission to publication. However, there are a few issues reported by the community for open access journals. For example, in some studies published earlier, the review process, some researchers reported that the review process is not tough enough in some open access journals, and they are charging a handsome amount, like 1,500 euros or 1,700 US dollar, which is a quite huge amount. So in open access journals, your publication will be freely available to the public, and publication process will be faster. but in general, the review quality is not the same as subscription based in some open access journals. However, in few open access journals, they maintain a high quality. Now, if you look at the ranking of the journals, a majority of the top ranked journals are subscription based previously, but now they have changed the paradigm, and now the subscription based journals are moving towards open access or hybrid approach, where they not only maintain the quality of the peer review process, but they also enables authors to make their article freely available to the public. The second type of publication or journals is basically subscription-based journals, where not everyone around the globe can download or access the papers. Only subscribers can access the articles. For example, if an article is published in Elsevier or Wiley or IEEE, and that article is subscription-based journal, so you can only download it if you are, if you have subscription to Elsevier or IEEE or Wiley, or you can access it through your university's library. Not everyone can easily download those articles. They do not charge a single penny from the authors, but the problem with the subscription-based journal is that they take a lot of time from submission to acceptance. If you talk about, top ranked journals, sometimes they take 1 year or 1.5 years in the peer review process. That is quite a long time. But once your article is published in those journals, it is widely accepted in the scientific community. So there are issues with the subscription-based journals as well. They take long time in the peer review process. They have very strict review process and even take 6 months for the first review. So for both the open access paradigm and the subscription-based paradigm, they have pros and cons. If you ask personally, I will suggest you to publish in subscription-based journals because there is no need to spend money on publishing articles. But if you have funding already available in some project and your funding body is asking you to make your article open access, so you can then publish in open access or make your article publicly available through that funding. There is no issue in that. So in principle, both the subscription-based journals and open access based journals, both are fine. Now, my last part of the presentation, it's about research-based career. So when you talk about research-based career, PhD is mandatory. Then why one should go for PhD? Basically, if you want to work in industry, R&D, if you want to join the academia and promote to associate professor, or other grades, or if you want to attract funding, or if you want to get yourself recognized in scientific community, or if you want to invent something or do some research and discovery, or to supervise MSc or PhD students, PhD is necessary and it's the requirement. So if you want to adopt this path of your career as a researcher, it is better that if you go for PhD. Now there are different opportunities, PhD opportunities available around the globe. Here I'm talking about Ireland. In Ireland, the total funding for 4 years, typically PhD can be done in 3 to 4 years, and they give 1,20,000 euros during 4 years period. It's around 1,500 euros per month, which is quite handsome, and it's some sort of standard stipend in the European countries. So with this PhD funding, your annual fees get covered. You don't have to pay a single penny. If you travel somewhere to present your paper, that travel cost is also covered. And if you need any equipment, like any dedicated equipment required during your experiments, the equipment cost can also be covered. And if you need any specialized training, that training cost can also be covered. So this is huge amount of funding available when you think about PhD. So never ever go for PhD from your own pocket. We go when we go for PhD, we try to secure scholarship because it's a huge amount. And this scholarship stipend will help us to sustain, our daily needs within that country. So in Ireland, they provide this amount to PhD scholars. Now, for few quick tips for the research-based career. Now, the first tip is if you are undergraduate or in your postgraduate, undergraduate or postgraduate studies, your academic grades are important. You should first focus on your grades, your CGPA, and try to focus on your current studies. Means whatever you are studying, try to excel in it. Instead of starting research at your undergraduate level, focus on the courses that you are studying, because when you focus on the courses that you are taking, it will help you to understand those fundamental courses, and it will help you to achieve higher grades. And when you finish your undergraduate studies with higher grades, with complete understanding of the subjects that you attended, this will help you to build a very strong researcher career. Because when you apply for getting admissions for PhD or higher studies in different countries, they look at your performance in your undergraduate studies or postgraduate studies. So the first step is to focus on your current studies and try to make your expertise within that domain. The second thing is that quality work is more important than quantity. So there's a phrase, परवाज है दोनों की इसी एक फिजा में, करगिज का जहां और है, शाहीन का जहां और. So it means that if you publish less, or if you if you are in the start of your research career, try to focus on quality work. When you focus on quality work, although you will be publishing less, but it will have a long-lasting impact. It will have an impact that that will be seen, but it takes time. So try to make your expertise okay, and try to focus on the quality work in your particular field of interest. The third tip is basically, if you want to start your career as a researcher, try to see the technological trends and then try to work on an emerging research area. How you can identify those emerging areas or technological trends? Basically, IEEE Communication Society and IEEE Computer Society, each year they both issues a list of top 10 technological trends. So try to follow those technological trends. For example, here I just mentioned few of them. Some of those are blockchain, quantum computing, adversarial machine learning, terahertz communication, federated learning, metamaterial, massive MIMO. So these are few of the technological trends that they highlighted. So try to work on these technological trends. And finally, my fourth research tip will be, try to make your plan. And if you want to go abroad in any different country to pursue your PhD studies or higher studies, then don't give up. Try to be patient. Try to complete your documentation first. It includes research proposal, motivation letter, your other requirements like passport or any other English language certifications. And then it's a long process. It may take 1 year or 2 years, but don't give up. And rejection is often when you appear in different interviews, when you apply at different places, you may be rejected at first instance, but just keep try, and inshallah, hopefully success will be yours. So here I conclude my talk. If you have any question, you are most welcome.
Dear Professor Mubashir, thank you very much for this great informative webinar. And first, I'm looking for the chat. And dear participants, you can ask your question via the chat. Thus, we can ask your question. And also, I am checking this place. Let me say, you can ask your questions. Chat. Okay. Dear Dr. Mubashir, thank you very much again for the great webinar. And in fact, you know, the publication process is different. And also, for example, when we consider open access, I will have a few questions. For example, you know, the IEEE force people. Okay, Tasnim, please ask your question, then I can follow.
Hi, Dr. Bashir. Thank you so much for this interesting lecture. It's
By the
really
way, Tasnim, okay, I forgot to introduce that. Tasnim is the past chair of IEEE Young Professions Bahrain, and today we organize this webinar with IEEE Turkey Young Professions team, IEEE Bahrain Young Professions team, and IEEE Kuwaiti Young Professions team. And as IEEE Region 8 Young Professions, we co-organize this webinar, these three Young Professional Affinity Group. And today, Tasnim, as a co-organizer, is here and ask her question. Okay, it is your turn, Tasnim.
yes. Hi, Dr. Mubashir. Thank you so much for this fruitful and useful lecture. It's really useful for researcher and the people they are starting their career in academia or research, or even the people in industry also can get benefits from this session. Actually, I have a question regarding the impact factor as you explained in the beginning. I usually hear two other terms, which is quality factor and Scopus factor, and it gets me confused when I want to know. Like sometimes I get a journal that has a good impact factor and high impact factor, but it's a Q3, not Q1. So I want to understand how they segregate these quality factors, and also sometimes I hear about Scopus factor. So how can we differentiate between these three terms? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. Basically, first we need to understand that there is a regulatory body in scientific community. For example, if you are in a country, let me give you an example of Pakistan. In Pakistan, there are different companies, telecom companies like Uphone, Mobilink. So these companies manages the mobile phone network. And there is a regulatory body on top of it managed by the government, which is PTA, Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, which regulates those companies. So the regulatory body has higher power and they regulate all the telecom industry within Pakistan. Similarly, in the scientific community, in the scientific publication process, we need to understand that which company or which organization or which entity plays a role of regulatory body. So it is Clarivat. So Clarivat is basically publisher neutral. It does not have any association with any publisher like IEEE or Elsevier or Wiley. All these publishers, whether it's IEEE, Wiley, Springer, Cambridge, Elsevier, or any publisher, they have their journals. They get registered themselves. They get indexed themselves with Clarivat Web of Science. So Clarivat Web of Science basically see the quality of those journals, the whole process, publication process of those journals. And if there is something bad, if there's something bad going on in those journals, then they exclude those journals from their list, from their indexing. So if anything will be conducted by JCR or Clarivat, that will be considered as an acceptable by the international scientific community. So this impact factor basically is issued by Clarivat. Whoever else claims about the impact factor, that cannot be considered as an impact factor. Okay, so there is no impact factor except the impact factor of Clarivat journal citation report. This is the first thing. Second thing is that there are different companies, organizations. For example, Google Scholar. If you see at Google Scholar, you can see the profile of different researchers, and all those researchers have their profile, and you can see their publication list and the number of citations that they receive, and I-10 index and H index. So these Google, the data prepared by the Google is not that much credible. The reason is that they consider, citations without considering, any important factors. But if you look at the same profile of the same researcher in Clarivet, that citations will be reduced by 3 times. Okay, so we always go for, checking Clarivet if you want to see the citations, if you want to see the journal impact factor, and if you want to see the ranking of the journal. This is the first point. Now, the second point is that impact factor is should not be the only criteria for measuring the quality of any journal. First is that when we talk about impact factor reflects journal, okay? And there are many articles published in that journal. For example, if we talk about Nature has an impact factor of, let's say, 49 impact factor. Now, when the COVID vaccine article will be published in Nature, it attracts a lot of citations. And some other articles are also published in Nature. They may not attract that much citations. But at the end of the year, when they calculate the impact factor reflects the whole journal. So, it is not, properly reflecting the quality of individual article within that journal. So how you can then measure the quality of any article or journal? You need to understand what the community feels, the scientific community. For example, if you are working in the domain of artificial intelligence, first you make the list of top ranked journals with respect to impact factor, and you will get a first understanding of the ranking. Then you will, when you will see different articles published by different top ranked researchers, then you will understand their actual position in that journal ranking. So to summarize, impact factor should not be the only criteria to judge the quality of the journal. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, thank you so much. It's clear. Thank you.
I have a question about the open access and the other. The IEEE start 14 journals, 14 open access journals in the 2020. So IEEE has an open access policy. It seems that instead of 14 transactions, they start 14 open access journal. And on the other hand, you say there are some debates, some concerns about the open access publication process. And as I remember from some of the IEEE president-elect candidates or IEEE president-elect, they say that we will try to reduce the open access fees below $1,000, but even that money may be, maybe great money for people. Think about that. When you consider the typical transaction, they can publish, if they publish, if they publish 13, 14 page CS paper, they need to pay 800 US dollars. So forcing people to paying money then more than 1,000 or even more than 2,000 in the current form. I think it is, it is difficult to, people don't want to pay money because they don't have any funding. And sometimes people try to find their own way as an independent researcher. And it is really difficult to achieve that in a, developing or underdeveloped countries. So how do you see the future of the open access journals? So even the target is $1,000, and you know that it is really difficult to cover such an expenses for quite many countries. So what do you think in this case? Paying that open access fee is difficult. So this may decrease the competitiveness of the journal submissions. What do you think?
So personally speaking, I'm more inclined towards subscription-based journals where the author should not pay a single amount of money. But I'm not in a position to make such decisions. But as a researcher, I always suggest my colleagues and other young researchers to publish without paying a single amount of money. And if you want to make your research article publicly accessible, you can upload it on different archives, different archives, for example, archive or
ResearchGate, etc.
Exactly. So because the reason is that because there is a background for this my inclination. The reason is that a lot of people try to exploit this open access. Let me give you an example. In some countries, there is a requirement of one journal article to get the PhD degree. Now, what they do is that they gather together and then they manage the money, 1,500 euros, 1,500 US dollar, and then they get their paper accepted very quickly, very easily in an open access journal without quality, and then they get the PhD degree. So such PhD degree and such type of research, they are overall decreasing the level of scientific research that is being published. So that's why I'm always criticizing on the open access. Although I'm not, in principle, I'm not against the open access. One should, should publish in open access because with open access they can easily publish. They can quickly disseminate their result. But there are some unethical people around the globe. They are exploiting this in order to go, for example, higher ranks to associate professor or just publish by hook or crook. They exploit this paradigm. So in principle, basically IEEE, in my opinion, they took this decision because the big publishers like Elsevier, Nature, Springer, all of them are moving towards open access. And moving towards open access because, for example, within Europe, the European Union, when they give the funding, they explicitly mentions that you have to make your article, make your publication freely available, open accessly available. So they have a lot of funding within the European Union. So those things, and they have a lot of agreements with the publishers. A lot of publishers are moving towards this open access paradigm. And if you see, there are a few companies, few publishers which have agreements with the countries, and they have even they can freely publish in those open access journals, and the countries' funding agencies can pay on their behalf. So that's why these major publishers, including IEEE, they are inclining towards launching new open access journals. And it's also a money making process because they say that why don't we make money when other publishers are making money. So that is the general thing.
Yeah, and okay, thank you very much for this answer. And my another another question about that. I review many papers, and especially in the last couple of years, I reviewed tons of papers. And okay, yeah, Tasnim say that even the all IET journals has been moved to open access. Yeah, many of them has been moved to open access. I will say that what do you think about the review process or the fairness about the review process? Because when I see sometimes when I review the papers, I rejected papers because there is not much contribution, but it seems that they publish they publish 6-7 transaction papers. But when I put all the things together, I cannot see so much contribution about that. Just a slight, there, for example, there is a problem and they make some slight contribution, slight, and when you when you put all the things together, all the contribution, I see it is still less than a contribution of one serious transaction paper, but people publish so many papers. And what do you think about the fairness of the review process as a very experienced editor? And one more thing, sometimes I rejected some papers in a you know, sometimes I rejected papers because they don't they have no idea about that journal. For example, some magazine paper, they prepare some magazine papers, but you know, they put some stuff, or but even when I say it, the editors don't consider that for publication because they are not really serious. It should not consider as a serious submission, because if you consider serious submission, you can say you're a submission or some other thing, reject your submission. But even in this case, I saw that people submit the paper not so much serious change revision, but the editor say, okay, but someday I am also a researcher. I prepare some serious journals. I can face with rejection and submit, but my reviews are not like that. Although I take the issues more serious, maybe because I work as a solo author in last year. I ask this issue from your point of view as an editor. What do you think about the general editorial process? Do you think it is really fair or close to fair? Of course, this is a tough question. This is a very tough question, I know. But it seems that you know, some people put some stuff and don't give the motivation, but many of those papers are accepted. Even the editors, while the editors accepting those papers, even the editor may may get bored or may get frustrated while they accept those papers. But maybe they say that, okay, this is a standard procedure. Some people put some stuff and we cannot find the mistakes. So, okay, let's accept it. What do you think about this trend? Because I saw really such a trend. They don't expect so many great contribution. Of course, all the papers are not groundbreaking papers, but it seems that okay, there are some submission, and let's accept that. Because when I looked at journals, many published papers, I don't think many of those give a great insight. So this is my question.
Yes, you know, there are issues. There are serious issues in the peer review process, in the quality of the articles being published. Now, if you look at you know, high quality journals, definitely their peer review process and their transparency is higher than the you know, low ranked journals. This is the first point that I want to make. But even on those high ranked journals,
I talk mostly IEEE journals. For example, if you talk clearly, for example, IEEE Internet of Things journal or some other journals.
Yes. So basically, the issue is that the issue goes to, in my opinion, the ethical behavior of the editor, of the reviewer, and the editorial office. So unfortunately, there are people, you know, in every discipline, there are good people, bad people. But similarly, in the scientific community, there are good people, there are bad people. So those who are experienced researchers, they know who are the good people, who are the bad people in the scientific domain. And the good people will never co-author with bad people because they know how they publish. You know, in the publication domain, you know, if someone is submitting a paper in any journal, okay, at the back end, they approach to the editor and they say that, okay, I'm giving the name of these reviewers, or please accept my paper, you know, a lobbying at the back end. So all these bad things, unethical things are happening, even in some good journals as well. So the main point that I want to stress is that we should first ourselves follow the ethical path, and we serve as an author, whether we serve as a reviewer, whether we serve as an editor, we always try to see the scientific quality of the work, and not the other things like country or affiliation or any other thing. The priority should be the scientific contribution that has been made. If we think that the scientific contribution is not good and make our part, at least we will stop such bad things in coming out in the scientific community. The second thing is that we try to train young researchers how to conduct quality ethical research. My professor, when I was in France, they trained me how to review papers. They trained me how to take unbiased decisions on the quality of the scientific content. So the same thing I try to teach young researchers to my PhD students, to my master's students, that when we do the review, we do quality review, we judge the technical content. And I also try to promote good colleagues, good colleagues in ethical standing, good reputation, to try to join the editorial boards and try to serve in the editorial boards of these journals. Because when the editorial board, associate editors are of good ethical standing, they can maintain the standard. Now what happens is that in IEEE, after 2 years, the editor-in-chief position changes. And the reason for this is that sometimes if a good ethical researcher comes to the position of the editor-in-chief, they make very good standards and the editorial board will be very strong. But if someone from the bad people, they join the editorial board, definitely they try to bring their lobby and bad papers and accept low quality papers. So this is the problem that exists there. And in my opinion, if we play our part, at least we can stop to some extent. It takes time. We cannot say that everything is transparent and clear and ethical in the top ranked journals. That is not the case.
Yeah, in fact, it is a long issue to talk, but I just want to ask that whether it is really felt by the editors,
yes,
at least some of the editors, because, for example, I recently invited to review a paper for transaction communication, and the editor, after making my comments, the editors say that, okay, what do you think about the general? What is your general opinion about the paper? And I say that. This is better than many of the published papers, but I think it still has not enough contribution to be published. So it depends on the editors and the journals. So I don't know what will be his decision, but that is my comment, because he asked me, and that is my comment. The rest, the rest depends on him. So this is why I ask this one. And okay, and I am checking the questions. Maybe one more question. What do you think about the review process, the length of the review process? I say that, for example, as a reviewer, generally, we totally spend 1 or 2 days for every, a paper. So sometimes if the paper is very clear, it is insufficiency is very clear. I remember that I rejected IoT paper. IoT journal paper manuscript in 1 hour, because it is very clear and I was focused, and I write this stuff in 1 hour, 1 page, and it was enough to reject that. But sometimes it may take more time. So when you consider spending 1 or 2 days, but not 1 week or more, what do you think about the publication process, or the length of publication reviewing process? For example, in the IEEE journals, they consider it as 3 months. Maybe it may be better to decrease it to 2 months, or maybe it will improve the publication process. Then, thus, if someone send a manuscript at the at the beginning of a year, they can see their manuscript to publish in the same year, or something like that. So, what is your opinion about the peer review process, speed of the peer review process?
Yes, this is the problem with the subscription-based journals in general, that they take a lot of time. Even when you submit to a top-ranked journal, like any top-ranked journal, they may err, in the peer review process, in the revision and in the peer review. And the problem is that basically, if you submit to a paper, and if an editor is not active, the handling editor will go, and there are issues at the back end as well. For example, for some editor, when they get reviewers don't respond, because this is a volunteer activity. So what we need to do in order to reduce this time, we need to play our part. I was discussing with one researcher, and that was saying that I don't have time to review any paper. I will not review any paper. I will just publish my own work and write my own work. I was, motivating him. Please try to review good quality, review of some papers, because this is a volunteer activity. When you play your part, other people will also play part, and collectively, when we try to review papers and provide good quality review and provide quick reviews, it will ultimately decrease the length of the peer review process, because reviewer activity is volunteer. There is no money involved. So that's why we need to train young researchers. We need to motivate our colleagues, and we need to ourselves try to get involved in the peer review process in a quick manner and with high quality, so that we can give back to the scientific community something. So if you see, good professors, good researchers, good scientists, they also consider it as a responsibility. My professors, they were, spending, a couple of, hours in a week just for performing the review, because they consider it as a professional responsibility, because they know how the system works. So my opinion is that this is the best way to reduce from our part the peer review time. Definitely, there are responsibilities by the editors and the editorial office and the publishers as well. They are playing their part, but as a reviewer, we can play our part and decrease the amount of peer review process.
I say, for example, the typical IEEE transaction journal, there are as I remember, there are 3 weeks. The paper stays in 3 weeks in the editor, and then it is sent 6 weeks to the reviewer, and then it is sent to it is resent to 3 weeks to editor for the final decision. And I think that when it depends on the editor, but even in 1 week it can be sent. And for example, the IEEE IoT journal, Internet of Things journal, they give 2 weeks to reviewers, and I think generally it is okay. And of course, they may extend if needed, if really needed. So when you consider that, then I think 2 months is really fair, and it will be better. I just say from my point of view as a suggestion, because you are the editor, I think you may talk with your editor-in-chief as a suggestion, and I think it will be super exciting. Instead of 3 weeks, instead of 3 months, making it 2 months. And by the way, the number of reviewers may be 2, 3, 4. As I see, there is not a limitation about the higher number. So maybe sending more review requests, review requests to more reviewers, more potential reviewers, may solve the issue. And because I see, because of my IEEE volunteering roles, sometimes when we organize the events, other issues, we have some staff, And if we need, for example, 3-4 speakers or some other, we send more invitation to other people. Or sometimes if we invite some people to the role, there are, for example, 4 positions, sometimes we send email to 4 or 5 people, because at least one of them reject that or something like that. So instead of waiting the reviewer one by one, if the reviewer are needed, then they can directly send the review request to those 3 reviewers, because as I know, there are reviewer pool by the journals. So this may be better, and you know, this may be much more motivating and exciting, and make the people more satisfied about the review process. I think maybe in previous years, previous decades, people consider that, okay, let's take it slow. There is not so many papers in the pipeline, and people should wait. But now in this age, in this era, people try to see the result of their paper, because the life is much faster than ever. Not only publication, the life is much faster than ever. We communicate, you know, as a communication guy, you are considering to reducing the delay to 1 millisecond when you consider 5G or the other thing, you know. But still, when we consider our review process, the speed of peer review process, it is still in 3 months. So.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And these issues are valid, and these are being discussed within the editorial boards, and IEEE editor-in-chiefs and editors, they are trying to increase, and even some other publishers like Nature, Springer, elsewhere, they try to enhance, but I accept that there's a long delay and it should be improved.
Yeah, I just because you are the editor, I just make this, you know, I express my point of view. Thus, it may be, you know, it may be give some motivation, or thus you may know how the people feel as the young researcher. This may give an idea, an intuition, something like that.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that.
You are welcome. And okay, it seems that there are not more questions. And dear Professor Mubashir, thank you very much for accepting our webinar and giving us this great webinar. And it is really interesting, professional webinar, because okay, we talk about sometimes scientific publication, scientific writing process, some tips or some other things, or we talk some we had some technical talks, or we had some other professional talks about the industry. We hadn't had a talk on research paper publication process, and it is really interesting. It was really interesting talk, and I think people should watch this talk again and again after this
thank you very much
session ended. And thank you very much for these great attendees, and thank you very much for their time.
Thank you very much.
Today I also okay, I also would like to thank Tasnim from Bahrain YP, and Ali from Region 8 YP, and IEEE Kuwait YP. Thank you very much for this great session. And I hope we can host you in our future sessions, or we can look for some other collaboration opportunities.
Thank you very much for this invitation. It was my pleasure, and I will be at your disposal whenever you need. I will be happy to deliver the webinar. Thank you very much to Tasneem and Dr. Ali as well, and to you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you very much.